I think what has happened is the focus now has been redirected to Africa. We are seeing the early warning shots of what we spoke about a few weeks ago, whereby now America is focusing on our continent. So we need to brace up for the bumpy ride that's coming ahead of us.
Welcome to Champions Network TV, where we discuss current issues that are affecting us globally and particularly in Africa. And today we are discussing what America is doing as implications to Africa. And to delve into this, we have a panel of experts, Mr. Makabai from Uganda, Makombe in the United Kingdom, Shumba, Nasoko. But to lead us in this discussion is none other than Shumba. Welcome, Shumba.
Welcome, Masquera Semish.
Masquera.
Okay. Yeah. Welcome, everyone. Yeah. So today we're gonna focus mainly on what's happening in the Sahel region of Africa. So I think there was an American general giving testimony before the committee. I think it's a security committee in America, and I think he's saying something really which shows that America has got a plan to destabilize or take out Ibrahim Traore. So this has made a lot of people worried. What are we gonna have, a Gaddafi 2.0? So we as Africans, I think we are on our own now. I think previously in one of our episodes, I spoke about that Africa is rich in resources. So America, the stance that Trump took was he wanted to end the Ukrainian war, and then his focus was going to be on China. He views China as his biggest enemy. And then he was going to focus on Africa as well, because Africa has got the largest resources. Why he's focusing on Africa is two-pronged. It's the resources as well as kicking China out of Africa. Because the next wars are going to be about supply chains. So whoever has got access to the raw materials will dominate those supply chains. So America is viewing China as the source of these raw materials. That's why when you see Trump talking about Greenland, taking Greenland, he's talking about, it's all about resources. So we are at a very difficult moment as Africans to see how we can ride over this, what's coming our way, and how we can get out of this. So before we go any further, I think if you can play what the general said so that we can...
Of a country is receiving gratuities on the side that in order to the benefit of the strongman leader and not to the populace of the country. Does that sort of corruption and bribery go on with regard to the Belt and Road?
Absolutely, Chairman. I see this, and I don't mind calling them out, but Captain Tory and Burkina Faso, as they know that both whether it's their gold reserves, that is all those proceeds are just in exchange to protect the junta regime. There's a number of those examples across, even in Sudan.
When a U.S. general goes on record accusing an African leader of using gold to protect himself, you know something big is happening. In a statement to the U.S. Senate, General Michael Langley, commander of AFRICOM, claimed Burkina Faso's gold reserves are being used not for the people, but to secure the leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré. But here's the question we all should be asking. Isn't that gold Burkina Faso's in the first place? In today's video, we'll expose the agenda behind this statement, highlight the power shift happening across Africa, and explain why the world is watching Burkina Faso more closely than ever before. In Burkina Faso, gold is no longer just a mineral buried deep within the earth. It is becoming a tool, a catalyst, a symbol of transformation. Each coin invested in agriculture brings more harvests. Each ounce that funds a hospital saves more lives. Each nugget that strengthens security guards the hope of tomorrow.
Yeah, I think you can end it there.
Even in a world of uncertainty, a country can rise when it chooses to invest in its people, its land, and its future.
Yeah, so this is, I think, typical of how they brought Gaddafi down. So they start smearing Gaddafi wants to kill his people. But if you look at Gaddafi, now the Libyans are regretting. They were promised the democracy. But America knew for once that Gaddafi had the 6th largest amount of gold in the world. Where is that gold today? The hospitals, there were hospitals in many countries had no way, they had no hospitals as near to Libya. I have friends who worked in Libya as nurses, and they used to tell me, they've worked in Saudi Arabia, UAE, but if you go to Libya, the hospitals that are there, you don't, it's just something else. It's like you are on another planet. But where is that all? And they got that democracy, but what has it brought to them? So this is the thing that is always sold to us, this democracy. Now they call it a junta. It's not serving its people. It's because if you look at the geopolitics at play here, I think Macron went to Trump because this is a French empire. And Macron went to Trump and said, can you do me a favor? My empire is slipping through my fingers. I need your help. So in a way, it's not direct, but America is doing France a favor and it will get something underhand, which we don't know. But this is about preserving the French empire. So you can see that eventually they've got the military means, they've got the capability to take Ibrahim Traoré out, because America was also in the ground in Burkina Faso, in Niger, in Mali. So they are also losing all those resources and they are not happy. And I think Ibrahim Traoré is also aligned with Russia, which is problematic to France and to some of the Western world powers. So that's where we are, and it remains to be seen where we are going with this. So I throw it in the discussion to see how we can, what's the way forward as Africans to take back control of our own resources.
Let's discuss.
What are we going to do as Africans? Big Brother is watching us, and Big Brother is positioned to destroy anything that comes out of Africa. So what do we do? What I think is we should start thinking about uniformity of approach. That uniformity of approach comes from us as a people. If we fail to create and facilitate that one people symposium, then nothing will work. Because we perfectly know that Big Brother thrives on divide and rule. And once he does that, we are paralyzed. Traore, our man, is doing well. And we measure the standards in line with what we think. Africa has got standards. And those are the standards we abide by. Big Brother has got his own standards. And it's time to define our standards and reinforce our standards. If Big Brother wants to bring the war to Africa, let him be our guest. And the time is now.
Yeah.
I think you've said it all when you say they divide us. Because if we start, if ever we start talking about unity, they throw in something so that we stay divided. Because the more divided we are, the easier we are to conquer. And they come up with this propaganda. They will throw a lot of propaganda against this Traore guy, so that us Africans will start hating him. And you say, oh yes, he has to go. But we don't know that they are just throwing a veil over our faces, so that whoever is raising their heads in Africa is to be squashed down. Because they are challenging. By challenging, they lose power. They lose the control they have over Africa. Because then they run everything. All the minerals will go. They want their puppets in power. Whoever doesn't do their bidding is to be taken out and the puppet to put in. And the puppet will be like, yes, say, everything going. In the meantime, Africa is not developing. So whoever starts development, they have to take him out because he's not listening.
Thank you very much. Like you said, the Traore example is what Africa needs. It brings back to the times of Thomas Sankara. I remember that time we had the Thomas Sankara, the Samora Machels, and at some point in time, there was Museveni of Uganda. Now, you find that all these came with the agenda of transforming their societies, because all of them, if you trace their backgrounds, came from very humble backgrounds and knew what it means to suffer, had felt what the general masses feel, and really had a vision to transform these countries. Of course, the issue was knock them off, which they successfully did with Sankara. It succeeded with Samora Machel. I actually got to learn that the time Samora Machel died, the timing was at 1. It was almost a sure deal that Museveni had to travel to Gand, bury Samora Machel, because he was one of his military instructors in Mozambique. And that was a time when he was also supposed to be dealt with. And he was lucky to have been tipped by the Russians that if you go, you are going the same way. So this one had to go. At the time, he was not expected. Went and paid respects to his comrade at night and flew back. So when they expected that he would be flying there for the funeral. Now, like we've seen it, the issue is eliminate whoever tries to bring up his head to unite these people who have all the resources. That if they are united, then the rest of the world is starved. The world that thrives on exploitation. And let me literally put it, on theft. And if we do not realize that what unites us is more than what divides us, our heritage, our culture, is the same. We have the same values, which we uphold, but we are being pushed to uphold other people's values. I will give the case of my own country, Uganda. Uganda is a country that carried out an aerial survey of its resources. You talk about Congo being rich, Uganda is very rich in terms of resources. To the extent that you find that a number of swamps, it has actually been discovered that almost the entire central belt of Uganda, stretching from the west, just skipping the Lake Victoria region, then to the rest of the east, that's full of petroleum. And now, with such resources, we have marble, we have uranium, and that's a target by those who are working, who have advanced mechanisms of nuclear energy. Now, like I said some time back, Africa needs to realize that nobody owes us a living. We owe ourselves a living. And if we owe ourselves a living, we need to be united. We should really work like orphans. You know, when you are an orphan, your survival instincts must grow very fast because it's about survival or you are finished. Now, you must align with like-minded people. So the issue is to, as much as possible, see whether we can have leadership. It does not have to be political leadership, but leadership, intellectual leadership, leadership in business and what have you, that really thinks Africa. We have been taking benefits of the Africa Growth Opportunities Act, AGOA. I don't know how many African countries, how much they export to the Americas, but I'm not sure that many African countries know that that is set to expire in September this year. When it expires, that means nothing goes tariff-free into that market. So we shall be facing the tariffs that have been imposed on the Chinese, that have been imposed. I mean, I think some big tariffs have been imposed on Angola, on South Africa, on Nigeria. Already there are signs. And yet we can trade among ourselves. But above all, the resources that we have been mentally enslaved to think that we must dispose of them as raw materials for somebody else to process, then we get the finished goods. So we must learn that we should refine all our minerals to start with, value addition. And then we go to the market as equal partners on the international market, because others have, I mean, you find Uganda produces a lot of coffee, but getting the coffee from Uganda on the shelves of the European market, it is only if it is processed by somebody else. Yet that processing can be done here. I got an opportunity to get invited to our embassy in Brussels one time. They were having an exhibition to promote production of coffee and cocoa in Uganda. This was in Belgium, I think it was 2022. And I was given an opportunity to speak. The whites were emphasizing us taking good care of the coffee beans and having them exported in that raw form. I told them I worked with a coffee export company for 4 years. And I learned one thing, that in the supply chain, which my brother talked about, in the supply chain, the money is not in the growing of the coffee. The money is in the roasted coffee. So if you want Uganda to benefit from coffee trade, roast the coffee at source, close to them, so that there is no contamination even in transit, no fumigation, no what. And you will have the best product that can sell on the market. And that would give value to Africa. At the end of the day, we would have the resources. Our brother in Burkina Faso is being branded all sorts of names. This is a person who has demonstrated that his lifestyle did not have to change much from what he was as an ordinary army officer, meaning that these state resources are not being used for his private, but the transformation is visible. And the moment you are transforming an African country, you are setting a bad example, like Gaddafi did. I was sharing with my brothers that I visited Libya during the Gaddafi time, and I saw empty estates of apartments awaiting fresh graduates to occupy. And each of these fresh graduates, all they had to do was occupy that flat for 2 years, and they would be deducting a nominal fee charge towards his mortgage, and after 2 years, he would own that flat. 2 years. Where in the world would you own such a property in 2 years? In an organized setting. So the earlier we woke up and realized that the rest of the world does not owe us a living. You remember when we had the COVID pandemic, it was thought that it would wipe us out because we have no medical services to talk about in these countries. But our environment, our natural foods saved us. Now, we shall not live on the mercy of nature. We must tame nature in order to survive in this very competitive world. So the Africans need to realize that we only owe ourselves a living. I'll keep emphasizing this, and we must unite to work together, to thrive together. If we don't work together, we shall perish together.
Wow.
Thank you very much. Insightful contribution. Any more?
Very powerful indeed. If we succeed together, that's fine. If we perish together, it's also fine. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved when he said the world doesn't owe us anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is, I think, the mindset we need to get rid of. And we are seeing that from Traore.
Yeah.
He doesn't want their aid. This is what I think America is really angry about. He said, no, we don't need IMF money. We don't need World Bank money. We're going to start afresh.
Yeah.
We don't want that dependency syndrome.
Yeah.
So until we get to that point that we start afresh without, because they know these multinational, these institutions, they are just there to hold us back, give us these debts that keeps us neck deep in debt, and we don't breathe. And it becomes a slave economy because you are always working to repay your debts. So we need to get away from that. Africa is rich, like my brother is saying. I was reading about that because Uganda was constructing that pipeline from Uganda to Dar es Salaam for the crude oil, and the European Union were at the forefront to sabotage that project. They say no European banks or funding companies are allowed to fund that project. So you can see that they always want Uganda to remain in the dark. They don't want it to benefit from its resources. What they want is just to spirit away those resources, like we see in Nigeria, fourth largest producer of crude oil, but you have shortage of petrol, and you have to import your petrol. How does that make sense? You see, so this is where now, if they see this, because for me, I always say most of the presidents we have in Africa, they are just colonial administrators. They are put in place. They are told to sit down there, enjoy the money with their families. They are getting millions. It's a lot of money, but they don't know what harm they are doing to the people. So they are just basically colonial administrators. But the guys in Sahel, they just stood up and said, enough is enough. We've got uranium, it's going to power France. France doesn't go a day without electricity. But in Burkina Faso, it's the norm that there's no electricity. How does that work when the uranium is coming from Niger, Burkina Faso, or Mali? So we need to wake up, like my brother said. And the thing, what I'm worried about now is we have our own flag generals who are in the US Army coming out because they are the face against our African brothers in the Sahel. They are being used because if it was a white general saying that, then it would have been, they knew it would not, it will cause a lot of problems. But now, because it's our fellow black guy, a lot of people will receive this message as valid. So we need to really fight back against this and say, no, we cannot tolerate. We had Libya that was destroyed, and now they want to destroy the only leader that most young people in Africa regard as a role model, so that they just keep us down. And what they are after is all our resources. So I'm hoping that Africa stands together on this one and say we're not going to tolerate one of our visionary leaders being taken out like that, being vilified and being subject of ridicule because he's doing what's right with our people.
And already there have been a couple of assassination attempts on him, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite reasonable. I think he touched quite a lot of things, especially with the product that we produce. I think it takes one of the things is we fail to branding and to get to the marketplace and the value addition. We just take our raw materials to wherever they are, and his key message, I think, is on the value chain. Only the product with the added value and the raw material. So let's continue discussing what do we do as Africans. He touched it's not only the political leadership. He says there's a business leadership that is needed on Amakombe, and also academics and those who are in the science. So leadership he says it has to be at all levels coming together to shape the future of Africa. Any contributions?
Even the churches, when we talk of leadership, because this is what I find very disappointing with the African churches, because they are more focused on just getting the money, but to provide that leadership. Because if you see at most colonial missionaries who came, their intention was to make sure the education system is there, the healthcare system is there, so that when they colonize you, at least things are working. But we have most of these churches that have mushroomed in Africa, but they don't add value to the African people. So that's where another element of leadership needs to come from. The churches need to be aligned to the needs of the nation. And then when we go to like business, what he said about business, the same thing we repeated yesterday. Africa should know how to market itself. And we should also focus on inter-African trade more than just exporting our raw materials, because the outside world there is even what we call our friends like China. What its interest in Africa is mainly raw materials. They want to just ship the raw materials. Imagine when Africa, all those raw materials are exhausted, where are we going to end up being? We are condemned to death, because that's when poverty really sets in Africa. because we have not seen poverty yet until our resources are exhausted. The reason why they come and give us these little breadcrumbs is because they are benefiting from our resources. When those resources are gone, they've got no reason to be on the continent. And then my brother highlighted another point as well, to say we need to develop our capacities, especially in disease control. Because honestly, I totally agree with him. I think COVID came as a surprise to the West. They thought it was going to wipe us out. But nature protected us. But we will not always be lucky. So we need to start developing those capacities so that in future, when we have these pandemics, we are protected. Because some of these countries, they've got biolabs, they experiment with bioweapons, and you don't know to what extent they can take this in order to have access to our resources.
I think the story is we should focus on brand Africa. The mantra should be brand Africa, brand Africa. We should start talking about positioning in terms of the African way of doing business. You should be in a position to effectively communicate with our fellow Africans and operate under the uniform approach badge so that we can create some development. Healthcare, we have got a lot of it. We have got alternative medicines which we can focus on and develop an entire industry. Food value chains we can work on as long as we cooperate and develop our own marketplaces. So the core issue is brand penetration, brand Africa, and buy Africa.
And I think we should be in a position to put laws that say if you want to
Sorry, I can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
How can you not hear me?
No, now we can.
Now we can. You were sitting on the microphone.
I'm not sitting on it.
Okay.
No, what I was saying is we should be in a position to put our own rules on our own products. Like, for example, coffee. If you want to take our coffee, we should be able to say we only sell it to you after we process it.
Yeah.
Not you are buying from me, but you are bringing your own laws. Take it or leave it.
I think that empowerment is needed.
Yes.
If we are going to create a brand of coffee, we must be in charge of the value chain.
Yes.
Yeah.
From manufacturing to whatever you can think of.
Yes.
I don't understand why we don't do that.
Yeah, and those who wanted to buy it, those who don't want, we deal with those who want to deal with us.
I mean, if you are buying leading brands of coffee and whatever without any problem, why can't we do the same? We can also create our own brands relating to the coffee and institute our own ground rules and facilitate our own marketing structures.
I think I remember Indonesia approaching Zimbabwe on the issue of lithium to say, let's form our own cartel like OPEC. So that kind of mindset, until it comes to us, especially you can look at the biggest producers of coffee in Africa, they need to come together to speak with one voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
that's why I keep saying, I mean, yes, we need to speak with one voice. If you look at our Western grocery chains, most of them are populated by English companies. It's either they've got an origin of Germany, United Kingdom, things like that. We need to start bringing our own grocery chains in the mainstream so that we can be heard, so that we can be seen. That brand penetration is needed, like yesterday. You can't have a corner in Tesco's, sorry, I'm mentioning names, that only facilitates African food, a corner. Is Africa a corner? We're a massive brand which has to be given a fair share of exposure. And we should start thinking about that. If the Chinese are coming out here and creating massive shops, why are we not doing it? Why are we not being given that preferential treatment to facilitate that competitive edge? We need to start thinking about that. We need to start thinking about Money Africa, our own African money. We have to start thinking about that. It's important to think about that. Because if we don't think about that, then we lose the opportunity to position ourselves in the monetization square.
So, what's the role of African Continental Free Trade Area in this regard?
It's an old boys network.
What do you mean?
Well, they write the rules. Yeah, that's what they do. They write the rules and they police themselves. So if you try and penetrate with an alternative thought process, you'll be kicked out or your life is made difficult.
We intended it to be half an hour for this session. Can we begin to maybe have our final thoughts? Your camera is off, I think. Your camera is off, Mr. Makabai.
I think he'll join us. Don't worry. There you go.
Okay. So let's try to give our final thoughts on this. Where, as Africans, what can we do given the threats and the fact that our brother who has started to stand for his country is being threatened left, right, and center. And what can our leaders do to try to rally around themselves to protect? What's today is Abraham, but tomorrow it can be anyone else within the African region, as long as you raise your head to try to stand for your people.
We are talking about a grand. Oh, sorry. Okay.
So, go on.
We are talking about grand indoctrination here, which is pro-Africa. That's what we should be thinking about. Once they attack one of us, they've attacked everybody. So the mantra should be brand Africa by Africa. We are Africans. And we must be in a position to start thinking about our constitutional rights. We must be in a position to write our own ground rules. And that uniformity of approach has to excel.
I think we need something like EU, an economic one voice in Africa, so that if one country say we will not trade with you until you follow these rules, those rules are followed by all the countries, so that say Uganda say we are not selling your our coffee to you unless we process it. They'll go to another country and they'll say, oh, we happily sell you coffee. So we are all losing. But they have to know that the rules will apply for every African country.
Uniformity
So
of
that they are forced to abide by our rules. No one is going behind others and saying, "Oh, we'll trade with you. It's all right. We'll sell it to you. Forget Uganda. Uganda. So it's all right. We'll sell it to you." Everybody will follow the same rules, so that economically they know if they approach Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe will say, "These are the rules." Uganda, same rules. So that they won't have much choice. They have to abide. Otherwise, we trade among ourselves and we grow among ourselves. And before you know it, they will come and trade with us like they do in China, because they didn't have much choice. If we grow quietly without asking, "Oh, sanctions, what do we do now? They've got sanctions." No, fine, we've got sanctions, but we can still grow because we've got the raw material.
Yeah. Shumba, your final 1 minute.
Yeah, I think I totally agree that we need to speak with one voice. And for some of these critical areas, like major resources that we have, we need to come together, like collectively. Countries that have that resource, they come together and see how they can leverage their position. Because one of the major issues is we don't even set the prices for our resources. Most of the resources are coming from the continent, but the prices are set in London or New York. You see? So those prices, when they set them, they are favorable to them, not to us. So we also need to learn from them. How do they come up with that pricing mechanism? We need to start setting up those market mechanism within Africa so that we can start establishing the prices of these things, because you can't expect someone who is naming their price for something that they don't produce. It's like you are producing goats. When you go to the market, you ask people, how much do you want to pay for it? So we need to start thinking that we are the producers. We sell, we should be able to name the price that we want to sell the goods at, not for someone to give us the price. So, and then when it comes to what's happening in the Sahel region, I think it shows that there are some leaders in Africa that are not comfortable with Ibrahim Traore, and they are dancing to the tune of the Western world. So they actually enable, they will even want to see the back of Traore because they know it will cause problems within their populations. The young people are looking up to him for change, and most of them are not comfortable with the things that he's doing that focus on delivering his people from all this chokehold on their economy or being thrown into servitude or slavery. So he's saying, let's wake up and be free and be economically free. But most African leaders don't like it because they're going to lose their lunch. So I'm hoping that we all stand behind him, give him all the necessary support, because I think strong winds are coming towards Africa.
Thank you. Soko?
I've already said, I grew up in the village. When you lose a cow, when you go cow herding and you lose a cow, you get beaten up because that's the most important asset. Now we are losing our most important commodities, resources, freely, happily. We are not guarding our resources. Those who lived in the village, you know, if you lose a cow, your father will be so mad, you go in the night to look for that cow. But right now, the most important resources we are giving, we are just giving them away. Like, oh yes, you can take, and we are kneeling to give them away, kneeling before the people who are taking them from us. Like Mr. Makabai said, and then they will process them and then sell them back to us at exorbitant prices that we can't even afford. I'm sure we have got enough intelligence to process. We've got enough intelligence in Africa to do what they are doing. Why are we not doing that?
Thank you. Mr. Makabawe, your last.
Thank you very much. I think, like I said, Africa needs to know that one, we have all that we need to survive. And it is we who are providing what others are surviving on. That's the starting point. Can we make maximum use and benefit of what we have that is benefiting others? Two, we need to know that in order to thrive in future, you need to save for that future. And what are we saving? We need to use our resources wisely, because sustainability is about using something and you having it reserved for the future generations. Like our sister said, we are just telling people, take, as if these resources cannot get exhausted. What will happen when they run out? Two, we need to tame our appetites, I think. Our appetites for what comes from elsewhere in terms of what we consume, in terms of what we use, in terms of even what we study. I mean, is what we are studying for the benefit of our communities? Look at our education system. You get to study so much, but you get to utilize very little of that. Can we get more focused on, I would call it education for liberation? We are not yet liberated. What kind of education system should we come up with that will, first of all, it must be, because education is about orienting people's minds into a certain way of thinking. Now, one, we need to learn through our systems that we are an endangered species. That's a fact. The African is an endangered species, and the first thing for one who is endangered is to devise survival mechanisms. So we need to devise survival mechanisms as Africans. We need to know that we have been tuned to fancying what is foreign and looking down upon what is local, what is African. And yet what is African is very valuable. Can we get back to the basics and know that we have the best? We should work for the best. And when we protect our best, we shall deal with it on our terms, because we are, like I've said rightly, you are producing something, but the one buying is the one setting the price for you. They don't know what you have gone through to bring that product to what it is. Now, leaders that are revolutionary definitely set bad examples, especially to those that have been thriving on exploiting us, our leaders who thrive on exploiting us, who have not focused on empowering their people. They see them as a danger, and they are bound to ally with those who do not want progress in Africa. But I think we must learn from our past. We've been exploited too long. We have been downtrodden. We have been abused. We have been used. Can we outgrow that and know that we should resist abuse, we should resist being used, and we should set our standards, however low they may be? They will gradually grow, and ultimately, Africa will be the continent to reckon with.
Thank you very much. Wumba.
I've already given mine.
Oh, you've got to given yours.
Oh, yeah.
Summarize in one sentence.
One sentence. I've already told you. I think the core issue I would say is, it revolves around education. Education is rehearsed knowledge, and it's not designed to make anyone a genius or a success story. Our objective is to go out and assume exposure We should go out there and create informative approach. We should go out there and understand the notion of divide and rule, which to death is a major crime towards our people. Having said that, we must be in a position to march on. Falling down is not an option. If you fall down, you have to stand up.
Thank you very much. Thank you, viewers, for tuning into Champions Network TV. We have heard it from the horse's mouth. Quite a variety of thoughts there. Some needs to be unpacked further, but the resounding message is: Africa, we have got resources. We have got all what we need to survive. We need to really focus and develop the rightful leadership, either at the political level, business, religious, academics, so that we can the business sector, we can come up with a brand Africa, buy Africa, made in Africa, and as Shumba said, the strong winds are coming. If we don't prepare, we might be swept with it. And so Coast's message is, we have got what is valuable. Do we throw it away? We learned it when we were young, when we were given a task either to look after goats or cattle. If you lose one, we are in for it, but we are losing vast resources without being accountable for it. Shall we continue like that? We need to change our mindset. And the mindset starts with you. So thank you for watching. Until next time, we will be discussing further interesting topics.